I was bullied.
And I was a bully. Brian stutter was one of the many things that I bullied him over.
I always believed that I didn't have anyone to talk to or share what I was going through.
It's amazing how a sincere, simple apology can change everything.
Hi there. A group of students recently in Massachusetts lured over someone that they believed was a predator, only to find themselves facing kidnap charges later. And then meanwhile, across the country, students are staging fights. And it's not even because there's a beef between whoever's doing the fighting, but it's about clicks and likes. It's an extension of what we spoke about last time regarding algorithms. But bullying as a form of entertainment is a new phenomenon. It certainly wasn't something we dealt with at school.
No, when we were at school, it was a real fight, and it was people who were victims were real victims, and people who were bullies were real bullies, and that still exists all the way until now. Even not just at school, but especially online. But it's become this absurd and perverse and twisted, sick. It's a perversion. It's kind of what it is. That. It's not even a case of real bullies and real victims. It's people who are going, let's get an audience by making it look as if we are a bully and victim. What does that do for the illegitimate bully and victim?
I mean, listen, I think there are legitimate victims in this. And it is legitimate bullying, but it's we always discuss the reasons and motivations behind why people bully, but this is just a different motivation. But it's still real bullies and real victims. I mean, the guy in the Massachusetts case, I don't know if South Africans get to catch a predator, that Chris Hansen thing, where they pretend to be like a teenage girl or whatever, and then they get these pedophiles to come meet them and then interview them on TV. And arguably that's also like, there's a sort of a moral motivation behind it to get rid of pedophiles, but it's also a form of entrapment, and it's also a form of entertainment. But they kind of view it, they don't view it as the same way as this is happening, where it's very real when these kids enacted that. So they set up like this kind of to catch a predator thing, mimicking kind of that, and to upload to YouTube. The problem was the guy that they entrapped wasn't a pedophile.
He wasn't, and we often speak about bullying as being a behavior versus being a label. The problem with the label of pedophile is that no matter how much you may redeem yourself if you are a pedophile, once a pedophile, you will always be known as a child molester. It's just that's a label you can't shake, whereas the label of being a bully you can, because being a bully doesn't necessarily mean being criminal or robbing a child of their childhood, but to entrap somebody who is not a pedophile and to call him one. I mean, he is the victim here.
So just to contextualize a little bit. It was a college student who did the entrapping. These were college students. The guy there was one girl specifically who did the luring, but he believed that he was talking to a 17-year-old girl. And he wasn't that much older. He was like 20-something, 22 or something. I forget his exact age, but he wasn't. And he thought he was talking to a 17-year-old, and the age of consent in Massachusetts is 16. So there was no crime, there was no pedophilia, there was nothing. He just thought he was going to hook up with someone online, like a million teenagers do every day. So they decided, and she had this whole group of other students who were waiting, saying that this guy that this was an older guy wanting to hook up with someone underage. So that was like, those were the facts. So again, and you talk about labels and how hard it is to get rid of labels. Remember, we spoke about the other night, I think you should even repeat the story, about that deep fake incident where the father didn't believe that these images of his daughter weren't sent by her, and that she hadn't sent these nudie pics to someone.
Yeah.
Just relay that story, because I think that's part of where it's this kind of new technologies and how hard it is to get rid of some of these labels.
There was a tragic story, as there are many, of teen suicides. But this time, it wasn't just a case of a teenager who was being traditionally or conventionally bullied online and told, go and kill yourself and all of those kind of phrases that are often used and compounded, which eventually leads someone to do that. This was the kind of bullying where you had a group of people who had created fake nudes of a teenager, and they spread them across social media, or rather they had spread them, and they threatened to expose her nudes even more and tell her parents and the bottom line is that what that does is intimidation, and intimidation is a form of bullying. Because back to what is bullying, in all its forms, it is a disproportionate abuse of power. And what is intimidation? A disproportionate abuse of power.
And designed to cause harm in this
Correct.
case.
So this girl went to her father, who was, I think, a pastor in a church, very conservative, and as is the case in many conservative families, there is still kind of old school discipline and punishment, and he took his belt to her, as you get in those old school parenting systems.
I mean, it's still abuse.
Yeah.
You may get it in those systems. It's still abuse, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. But that's what happened. He accused her of being a slut and being a this and his daughter this and his daughter, and he played the whole church card. Long story short, she killed herself, and the father then found out after her death that she was in fact telling him the truth, and that they were not her nudes and that they were fake, and the father wouldn't believe her. So there are so many complexities here because you had the perpetrators who were deriving whatever control and whatever entertainment and whatever satisfaction out of seeing the harm that they were inflicting, or just maybe they didn't even view it as them causing harm, but them being entertained by somebody's misfortune, which is such an everyday common human instinct. I think the word is Schadenfreude, where you take pleasure in seeing somebody else's pain. But the added trauma, and it is trauma, although I have no sympathy with the father for how he had punished her and how he didn't believe her. His punishment, he's got to live with his own conscience now for life, because he didn't believe his own daughter. So the perpetrators actually got a double whammy out of this.
Which, going back to those Massachusetts students, it wasn't only that they accused him of being a paedophile, they also chased him when he came to meet her. They chased him and physically attacked him. So he was assaulted physically.
And with that, you had other kids who were all in on it, who had their cameras out.
Of course.
Now, this has introduced a whole new level of bystanders and enablers with multiple levels of nuance. Because we are used to talking about, in old school bullying, about you have your gang leader or amongst guys, or your queen bee, amongst girls. That's kind of the same thing. But there's always a ringleader, and there are the acolytes who will do exactly what they say because they want to fall in line, and they don't want to be seen to ever go against what the ringleader is saying. But then you get those who are bystanders and enablers. Now we've actually kind of looked at what the subtle differences are between bystanders and enablers. They aren't the same thing. People who enable are aiding and abetting what is going on, whereas bystanders are not necessarily guilty of aiding and abetting, but they are usually either too afraid to tell somebody, or to report it, or to reveal what's going on for fear of retribution against themselves.
Or apathy. It's not them.
Or yes, or absolutely. You'll have. I mean, how often, do we encounter not my problem, not my issue? So, in our approach to harm reduction, in bullying, we advocate for empathy and compassion. And when you have apathy, you're not being empathetic and not being compassionate. You may not think you are contributing, but you're not showing any kindness either. And it takes somebody who's willing to put themselves on the line, call it a whistleblower even. Take somebody who's willing to put themselves on the line to actually go and report it and go, this is wrong and this is going on.
So the thing is, so there's this trend now with fighting and recording fights. So it's now the enabling has like taken on a new level, because it's more than it's literally being involved in it for the ability to record it. And so rather than intervening, if you see someone getting fucked up, you take out your camera. That's where it's gotten to. And then, I mean, sure, you get people staging fake fights for content, and sometimes those can be pretty hectic. But that's just idiots consenting to do something to upload violence, and it's not, it's more about them getting likes, both the people, whoever's involved in those fights. But this is more about going viral more than anything else. It's got nothing to do with a beef between those people. They're like, okay, let's fight.
And there are two different ideas here. You might have a real fight and a real bullying scenario, where there is one who is perpetrating and one who is a terrified victim who's being bullied, and you'll have people who have their cameras out and their phones out, and they're posting because but who in fact actually is the bully or the victim, or both, or neither, when you've got a group of people who are staging a fight and going to everybody around, film this, it's going to be cool. Or, now that I think about it, it may be two people who don't let on that it is staged. It's their secret, which makes it even more intriguing, because then it looks spontaneous. But
Except it's not. I mean, I think the staged ones are less pervasive than people deliberately starting fights for the content purpose. So it's still for the purpose of content, as long as they hate the person. But there still are real victims who get fucked up, and not only in that moment in time, but immortalized, because that's forever on the internet. And so the humiliation of getting fucked up is repeated over and over again, that their children will see. There's that component.
What this is just an extension of. It's a different arena, it's a different medium, it's a different means and method. But as old as time, humans have had this perversion, and it is a perversion. This is it a kink? Is it sexual? Who knows? But it's this obsession with bloodthirst. As long as we can remember, I mean, have a look at the gladiators, going back to ancient Rome and ancient Greek. Where people were like seriously maimed and wounded. Even look at the bullfights. Look at the bullfights. The fucking Spaniards go to watch a bull ripping somebody apart.
Well, it's not only the Spaniards who go, but
right. But it's their culture. But I think I always say, and I say it in our keynote, that, you know, bullying is not a cause. Bullying is a result of, it's an effect. It's an action that is deeply rooted in something else. But I think one of the great philosophical questions we can ask is, how do we undo that human thing that you know, we want blood, you know,
that's going to be there forever. I mean, that's
why we say it can't be eradicated, but we can reduce it.
Yeah, but in this case, even the things that you talk about, the gladiators or people who went to arenas to watch people have their heads cut off or whatever it is, we've always had that propensity as a species towards that kind of darkness and violence. But what's different here is that, and we've spoken about the difference between bullying in our day, where it was real and confrontational because it wasn't behind a screen. Here, there's that added component. Here, you've got social media platforms who leverage that propensity and who highlight that violence. And so, because so much of it's behind a screen, when you're watching it behind a screen, you're protected, so you don't have the same, firstly, you don't think they're the same consequences. You don't have the same degree of empathy because it's not even, it's a picture. You're not seeing the real victims or even seeing behind what's happening. You're just seeing the violence and you watching it and eyeballing it and giving clicks and likes to it. But there's like a detachment that it's real people.
Yeah. And also, being behind a screen, what the social media sphere is, it's one endless, infinitely sized arena where you can watch. But you're not experiencing that collective shared bloodthirsty, you know, egging people on. That's an interesting dynamic. So as opposed to being, you know, you think when you're at a sporting event or at a rock concert, what, you know, even if the person who you're watching, you know, you're in the last row up at the top of Taylor Swift's concert, and she's like that size. You're not there for her. You're there for the experience of being washed up in the crowd and that and the hysteria and all of that's part of the experience. So that public display of baying for blood is not present in a social media sphere, but it still is a spectator environment.
But wait a minute, it is actually present in a sphere. And we thought that there wasn't as much a connection, but this is the connection of cancel culture gone too far.
Yeah.
And it's a mob thing.
Mentality.
So originally it was intended to exact admonishment on someone who had behaved poorly for whatever reason, okay? So someone used a slur or used the wrong thing, whatever, and they were going to be punished. Boycott and don't burn their CDs and don't listen to their music and delete them from Spotify, like all these things that you did. Right? And then...
I'm laughing for reasons, guys, that nobody will understand. It's all got to do with our friendship and quirks we have.
So there's that whole, the cancelling and what that looks like. But then then it became a tool to, like, if someone just made a tiny little mistake, like all humans are capable of doing, they were like cancelled forever. That was that. And there was no path for redemption. It was like, fuck you, you cancel, we don't ever, deleting you, no more tweets, nothing, you're dead to us. And have people's lives have been destroyed. Well, David Beckham was he wasn't really cancelled per se. I suppose he was. It was way before social media.
He was cancelled before cancel culture was a thing, but because it was a mob mentality of when he got red carded, and suddenly there was this mob mentality of destroying him for one moment, whereas he'd had this whole career. But you tell the story, you know it better.
Well, in the David Beckham case, he was red carded during a World Cup match against Argentina in 1998. And because they didn't win, because he got sent off, England blamed him. They take soccer very, very seriously. And so he was booed every time he went onto the field. Fast forward to Harry Maguire and to Owen Farrell, but won't get into all of that. But Beckham didn't retaliate and he didn't react. But as we learned more recently because of his documentary, it did impact him. And how could it not? But he was, just because he was so good, was able to win back the admiration of England as a top player. But this sense that as a mob we have the right to berate and to threaten and to boo and to just exhibit ugly behavior towards someone because they're not performing to our satisfaction or to our expectations is fucking insane. And, you get someone like Owen Farrell having to resign from international rugby. And then some people who are like, well, he's an arsehole and he deserved it because he's this and he's that, and, he's the kind of person who's a bully himself, but it's not a permission slip.
No, and coming back to where we started, about how bullying as a form of entertainment on social media. Just because you have a social media account, now I'm going to get a little bit on my soapbox here. Just because you have a social media account doesn't make it okay to be mean and to be vile. I could use worse words, but I won't. I was going to use "see you next Tuesday," but no. It doesn't give you that license to be that person. And, the world is full of enough perpetuated and ugliness that... But, use your social media accounts responsibly. And that doesn't mean only post pictures of your dog and your cat and your walk along the beach. That's not what I'm saying. But consider who may be harmed. And even if you don't know who that person is, have a conscience, guys. Because at the other end of that is a human, and there are other ways of deriving pleasure and deriving satisfaction, and being heard. Because I maintain, and there is constant proof of this. Anecdotally, anyway, if you look at bullies, whether it's on social media, whether it's in a situation of being confrontational, whether it's in the army, whether it's a person of rank who is with a person of lower rank, whether it's in the workplace, a teacher does not have a right to take their shit out on somebody because they had a shit day. That's not their job. But what I'm saying is that in all forms, people who bully just want to be heard. And I don't have a problem with people being heard. I really don't. It's the very reason why we advocate the equal weighing, the equal weighting of giving both the victim and the bully voice. You know, our story that we tell and our success story. I mean, you know, former victim and my bully, who are now the best of friends. I mean, that we are a miracle, and I acknowledge that. And I want people to be inspired by that, of what is possible. And so we advocate for let a bully be heard, but be heard and communicate and get your pleasure out of something that doesn't potentially cause somebody harm and trauma for the rest of their lives. Because that's what it does. That's what it does.
Any leader in society has empathy. That's just, you know, you can listen to any podcast by any expert or any business coach or any, you know, of course there'll be those who are like anti-woke and you've got to be aggressive. There'll be those. But real leadership and real leaders demonstrate empathy. There are studies, even in the US military army, there's studies that more effective leaders are ones that have empathy and are likely to inspire more loyalty and more unit cohesion as a result, which is the whole point of the military. But, you know, you talked earlier, Bryan, about how we have this age-old darkness, to violence. But we also have an age-old propensity for empathy and kindness, that it exists in us as well. And it might not be, especially in the way how polarized things have become online. You're either this or you're that, or you're this, or like you can't, there's no nuance, there's no room to have a different opinion. It's like you're this or you're that. And, you know, you're a feminist, or you hate blacks, or you can't, God forbid you have like different feelings about different things. There's no room for that. You've got to be this, you've got to be that. But all of these platforms that leverage that propensity to violence by elevating and promoting and uplifting all of the negative and the violent and the ugly, because that's what gets more clicks and more likes.
That's my point. Is that we have propensity for both the greatest good and the greatest bad. So then if we're looking at what is a solution, then it's incumbent on parents, it's incumbent on ethical technologists to come up with platforms that elevate and uplift empathy and kindness and downplay content that is violent and ugly. Like we can do it. The same, I mean, it's just a technological, you just change the 1 and the 2 around, and then it does the other thing. It's like, it's an easy fix technologically, but we have to... But kindness and... If only kindness and compassion and empathy was as viral as violence.
No, but that's the point. We just have to shift what the algorithm is pushing up. I mean, take Blue Sky. I know you're not on it yet.
No, I will be soon, because I've been looking at it.
But what's amazing about Blue Sky and what's drawing, and it's like in a very short time went from like a few million, etc., to like 30 million, like just a very quick trajectory of users. And people are going there because there's the expectation of civil conversation.
Yeah.
And so when trolls come, you just block them. And if they don't get half blocked, they get blocked. And then if there's no one to impress, then it's boring for them anyway. So they fuck off. And that's the objective. Unless they want to engage in a real conversation, but then that requires a degree of civility that has been lost on X and Facebook and all of that. That degree of civility has been lost. But people miss it. That's why you're seeing this exponential growth on Blue Sky, is because there's a desire and a thirst to have meaningful, civil conversations. And sure, you can discuss controversial topics and what have you.
You can still be heard,
but in a way
that's not harmful to others.
Exactly. In a way that respects someone else and respects the diversity of opinion. You know, we embarrassingly, one of our episodes, couldn't remember what the E in equity, the E for DEI, that was equity, we forgot. Just, it was a brain fart at the time. But, I mean, just still, imagine that those words, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which are just designed to consider that everyone be given a fair shot. That's all that is. Like that's being scrapped from websites in America at the moment. I mean, to the point that the CDC, you go and you want to look at something that's been taken offline because it mentioned the word fair, be fair to a lesbian, and off. Like whatever, like that's just like, God forbid you see something like that. And so it's just going to be more incumbent. So there's a cultural thing going on here. And so it's still very polarized. And I don't know how it plays out in the end, but I do think that parents and technologists and learners and young people all have a responsibility. And yeah, young people have a responsibility. It's not just, you know, they're part of this conversation. To not buy into the bullshit that you've got to post some fucking bullying thing is the only way you're going to get likes, and the only way you're going to be popular, and the only way that you can function online or have any credibility online is if you're posting shit like that. Rather, go somewhere else. Go to a platform that rewards you because you helped someone, you saved someone. You know, I mean, it's hard to believe that this is even a debate.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we started our keynote not knowing where it would go and how impassioned we would actually become about this particular topic 2.5 years ago. And we just, you know, once we had had our reconciliation moment, and we'd gone through the whole thing of apology and forgiveness, and not only that, me finding an empathy for the person who had bullied me, because I had context. I mean, I also had the benefit of years of growth. But still, I mean, I know a lot of people who, when they think about school, that they don't want, it's too painful, even at our age. But my point is that. No, I can't remember.
Well, that's good. That's good to not remember.
It was. I was going somewhere with this. There was that. I can't remember where I was going with it, but it was was really meaningful.
Yeah, and usually I follow along with you, but I don't know where you were going.
But
but there's one other thing, and maybe this will trigger the memory for you again.
Yes.
I don't know. But one of the other things that you can do, aside from going to a new platform and designing new things and all of those things which are ideas to get rid of this, is also if you see a fight online, don't click on it. Stop giving the clicks and the likes, because that's also one of the ways to just you see that, don't reward that content. It's not a hard thing to do. Just go, I'm not clicking on that. And don't. Sorry, carry on. What did it happen?
No, I'm going to pick up on that point first, and then I'm going to wrap up with where I was. Oftentimes, there's one of the options on the bottom of the Facebook screen on your phone. There's your feed, and there's your profile, and there's your friend requests, but there's one little icon square that has reels, and I literally go click in order to just get rid of the alert of how many reels there are. I click out of it, because invariably what you click on is somebody who has videoed a fight on an aeroplane that is broken up between two people who can't be civil on a fucking aeroplane. But my point, where I got sidetracked, and I was talking about how we are a miracle, is that we are living in a world that is dark, that is violent right now, and it's all the more reason why doing the work that we are doing. That's the thing I was saying. We have started this as just, we've come together, we were once a bully and victim, and we reconciled, and let's tell our story. Boom. That's cute. But the reason for getting the podcast going, and the reason we are getting out there on social media, is because when we see the stuff like we're seeing, like fake crimes and people who are being destroyed just because people want likes and clicks, everybody has to do something to go, this is not okay. And so we have become very, very impassioned about the subject at large and as a whole, not just telling our story. That was so 2 years ago. It still is the basis for our keynote, and it's a very important basis, because we go there. We go there. But we go there for a reason. We go there to show what was and what is now, and what is possible when you choose to not perpetuate the toxic, or the dark, or the violent, or the bloodthirsty.
Yeah.
And so please engage with us, talk to us, comment, make contact, come and speak to us. We would love to have people who have both been perpetrators and victims come and share your story with us and engage with us, because the more people out there who are willing to do what we are doing, which is not being a therapist or a psychologist or a social worker or some PhD author who's being interviewed and doing TED Talks and whatever. We are the real thing, and we've been there.
And also, even if you were a witness or an enabler or a bystander, and you've come to realize that that's actually who you were in that context, it would be interesting to hear from you, do you have any regret? Do you feel differently? What would have been different if you'd have actually done something? How might that have changed your life or someone else's? I mean, I think those are all stories worth hearing.
And whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, if you want to send us a DM to tell us about an incident that you think is worth us talking about, let us know.
Absolutely.
All right.
Till next time, cheers.